Statistics 4 is our next lesson, and it's all about normal distribution. So I've been talking about it throughout the unit, how there is a normal that we kind of look at, and normal we often looked at as being the average, or that kind of that middle value. Today we're going to take a look at what kind of distribution do we have in a bunch of data points, and we're going to look at a few different ways to describe it, and we're going to look at a few different ways to kind of show a normal distribution, and is something normal. Now, when we talk about distribution in general, there can be distribution that's skewed one way or the other. So there might be a lot in the front and very little in the back, or there might be lots in the back and a little bit in the front. But a normal means that it's very balanced, and it's going to be balanced in a very specific way. With normal distribution, we're going to be using the mean, and we're going to look at median and mode a little bit as well as standard deviation and how that affects it. And then a little later, once we've understood normal distribution, we're going to take a look at z-scores and how they are associated with normal distribution as well. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to look at how to create something called a histogram. And a histogram gives us an opportunity to kind of demonstrate somewhat of a normal distribution, or could represent a normal distribution. So our first part of this lesson here is on how to create a histogram. And we're going to use an example, and we're going to use golf scores. So in 2019, just a little while ago, Phil Mickelson golfed 60 rounds of golf on the PGA Tour. Okay, so 60 rounds of golf, that means in 18 holes, and the score is how many shots he took over those 18 holes. Let's create a frequency table to group his scores into more manageable groups. Okay, so here is all of his scores. They're on a big chart, and that chart is a representation of all of those values. The first thing that when we do a histogram, what we want to do is we want to see what is the range of scores. And we want to see what the range is of scores. And so we need to find the largest and the smallest scores. And what that means is we're going to have to go and look through all of these here and try to find what the largest and smallest is. Going through nice and quickly, this 60 right here is the smallest. I don't know if that happens the second time. I think there's just a one. And the largest is going to be the 79. Okay, so 60 was his lowest round, 79 was his highest round, and there is a second 79 there as well. And yeah, so there's some that are more than once as well. So that means that our mode, there's definitely a mode somewhere or other there as well. So we have a range from 60. Okay, the range is from largest minus the smallest value. And so what that means is that our largest was 79. Not sure why that's happening. Okay, so our largest was 79, and our smallest was 60. That means that we have a range of 19. So there's a range of 19, which gives us kind of a breadth of how big it is. Okay, so 19 values. So when we're doing a frequency table, it's going to look, we're trying to kind of find boxes that we can place all the scores into. And we want to try to come up with a small-ish amount of boxes. Normally, we'll try to do about between 6 and 10 boxes. In this case here, I'm doing 7. I've kind of lined it up that 7 is really good. But we want like these categories. These categories are going to include certain values. So the first category, so the categories are going to be part of our range. And so what we're going to do here is we're going to list off the categories as intervals. The first interval that we have is going to be from 60, let's just quickly go through here. We want to figure out how big our intervals are going to be. I'm going to use 7 intervals. And so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take my range and I'm going to divide by the number of intervals I want, and I get an answer like 2.71 roughly. Okay, so that means that if I want 7 intervals with a range of 19, I need to have them at least 2.71 big, which I'm going to round up to 3. When I'm making these intervals, I'm going to round up, I'm going to have them in groups of 3. And what that looks like then is that we have intervals of from the lowest to 63. And then I'm gonna keep going up. I'm gonna do 63 to 66. And then we're gonna do 66 to 69. And let's just, it's working really well having spacing there with the enters. Let's try this again here. So 69 to 70, not 70, 72, and 72 to 75, and then 75 to 78, and 78 to 81. Now you'll notice with these ranges, okay, so with these ranges, we are including all of the scores. So every one of these scores could be included in those ranges somewhere, or in that frequency somewhere. Now, when what we're going to do now is we want to put all these values into this table and figure out where do they all fit. So we can use a tally system to kind of find that. And now this is maybe a little bit easier with a pen than using a computer here. But what I'm going to do here is I'm going to try to cross off all of these values and put them into the table. So we have two 65s here. They're going to fit in right there. Okay, so those two are there. We have a 72 and a 71. Now 72 is going to go into this one. Okay, we end at 72, so it's going to go in there, and 71 will go there as well. Okay, whereas anything above 72 would go into the next one. Okay, so it's up to an equals. Okay, so equals 72, except for the last one that would equal 60 would go there too. So 75 and 73 are going to go into this box here. And there's our first one done. 69, 68, 68. So we have 3 in here. 1, 2, 3. 76, 72, 74. 76, 72, and 74 right there. And again, this just takes a little bit of time to go through. So we have 74, 70, 68, 69, 67, 72. And you'll notice here again, I'm using the tally system. Okay, there we go. There, that line's done. Now we got 72, 65, 78, which is right there. 71, 76, 66, right there. So that line's done. And then we have 60, 72, 74, 76, 74, 75. That line's done. 68, 69, 74, 76. You'll notice here too that I am using a every 5 I'm just stroking over so that I know I got my groups of 5. It makes it a little bit easier to count them all up later depending on how many we have. 67, 70, 76, another 70. That was done. And I'm crossing them off so that that way I remember which ones I've completed and which ones I haven't. It can be really helpful to do that. 74, 73, done. And then 68, almost finished here. Another one there, 70, 72, 68, 69. That one's done, 75. Now you'll notice kind of as we're putting all of these in that there's majority of them are in the middle. Okay, so majority are in the middle, and that is something that is understandable. Okay, it's something that's understandable. There should be more in the middle than on the outsides if something is considered to be normal. Okay, so if something is considered to be normal, there will be more in the middle than on either above or below. I'm just going to quickly do my sums here. So this is 14, this was 6, this was 2. And checking my answer key, that looks like that's what it should be. All right, so if we would add up all these numbers here, we should have 60 values because there are 60 pieces of data. Now, this is our, these intervals here, it tells us how many pieces of data fit inside each interval. It doesn't tell us the exact piece of data, that this chart does, but it kind of shows us that we have how many pieces of data we have in each of these intervals. You'll notice that we start with very few, we end with very few, in the middle there's a lot. This is what would be considered normal or looking fairly normal. Okay, and that's a good thing. We can definitely use normal when it comes to that. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to use this frequency table to create a chart, which we call a histogram. Okay, so we're going to create a chart which is called a histogram, which is really it's graphic. Okay, so we have Phil's golf scores right there. On the bottom, we're going to have his scores. We're going to label that. On this side here, we're going to do the frequency that it happens. And I'm going to see, I'm going to try something here. Doesn't look like, okay. Just checking to see if I could like flip that upside down there or turn it around. Didn't look like it. So, all right, and then we got to put all of our values on here. So on the bottom, our scores are going to be these intervals here. Okay, so we're going to be using those intervals. And I'm going to start here at the side. I'm going to make my numbers a little bit smaller so they can all fit in nice. There's going to be 60 there. And then I'm going to jump up by threes here. So that's 66. And remember, these are like my intervals, right? So these are the intervals that I used. 72, 75, 78, and 81. There we go. So there's the intervals. And then on this side is going to be all our intervals. On this side is going to be our frequency. You'll notice that our biggest one is 17, and there is 32 spaces. So I actually have to go up by ones. Sorry, I've got to go up by twos. There's 16 spaces. Sorry about that. Sorry, so this would be 4. And so I'm going to go up by twos here, and I always skip them. So this just tells me that I need to. I'm just going to quickly mark these in here. So I need to make sure that I can include all my frequencies on here. I want to try to do it as closely as I can. If I could, I would have tried to go up by ones, but I can't because I wouldn't be able to fit that last one on there. So I make sure to fit them in as best as I possibly can. Okay, so that's what we're going to do right off the bat. Now, so we label it. We have frequency, we have scores, we have Phil's golf scores. Now we're going to put in our frequencies here. So we're going to place all these into these intervals. Now here's the thing: these intervals are connected. So we're not just going to draw a little skinny bar like we might have in a bar graph. We have to draw a full bar right in between the entire thing. So between 60 and 63, there was one score. So we're going to draw one score right in there. We're going to fill that bar in, and I'll fill it in a little bit. Okay. Between 63 and 66, we had 6 scores. So then so 6 would be right there. So that would be our 6. And like I said, I'm going to fill it in a little bit there. Between 66 and 69, we had 14, which is right there. And then let's get a different color. Between 69 and 72, there was 17. So that's going to be right there. Now, if those lines aren't 100% accurate, that's okay. I'm looking for, do you know how to like kind of graph these out? That's the important part, but it needs to be neat and it needs to be tidy when we are doing it. 14 again. Let's see, do I have more colors? Got this dark blue. Between 75 and 78, there was another 6. And then in the last one there, I haven't used red yet. Between 78 and 81, there was 2. All right, so there's our histogram. Just going to fill slowly fills in as I talk. This histogram kind of shows us where his golf scores normally land. And you'll notice that his golf scores normally land kind of in the middle, which is kind of to be expected when we are dealing with something that is what we would call normal. If things land mostly in the middle, they are considered to be normal. And then just gonna fill that in a little bit. There we go. Try to. All right, so there's my histogram, or there's a histogram. So this shows us that this middle, we can call them boxes, that middle box is the fullest, there's the most in there. The outside boxes have the least amount in there, which tells us that they are the least popular or least likely, which is to be expected if they're on the outsides. The middle is always going to be the most popular. It's going to be where most of them are. So this is a histogram. Now, if a histogram can be drawn in, well, this is a histogram. We also have a different way of describing it as well, and that is something called a frequency polygon. And a frequency polygon, all it does is it takes the middle point from each of these, and it just draws a line between there. So we're going to draw a line there. We're going to draw a line here to there to here and there, and that would be our frequency polygon. Let's just extend this line a little bit to make sure it meets. There we go. Okay. So now you can kind of, that would be our frequency polygon. It shows the nice kind of hump in the middle there, and it shows that curve that we have. Now, 60 data points isn't a ton, but it is a good amount that we can kind of already start to see this really nice looking graph. If we were to take more and more of Phil Mickelson's scores, we would probably see an even more distinct graph like this. And if we were to make these boxes a little bit smaller and have more groups, we would probably actually see even more like a curve without all these little tops here. So the boxes are a histogram. The line on top is a frequency polygon. Okay, so it's a frequency polygon.